Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, I commented the other day that I'm pleased to say that when I show up, if I'm the only one who shows up for a meeting, then we've already gotten the quorum.
That's good.
That's better. I'm trying to watch everything here at the same time. And for the record, to be perfectly clear, both Don and I are members of the state community as well. We're just members.
Oh, you're the
delegate last time.
That's right.
But you're the most important. That's the thing that people don't realize. You know,
I don't realize it.
Diane and I may be in positions where we have a little title that goes with it, but what's so important is are all the people who make up the committee. That's what it's all about.
The delegates and the committee members.
That's right.
Serious, very serious.
But I think it's no secret to say that I consider myself a conservative in the Tea Party first versus a Republican. That's just my actions. I look at it as the Republican Party comes closest to my philosophy, so I'm going to use it.
That's
see
fine.
What happens.
I think we feel that, yes, Tea Party are conservative, and since so many of the GOP aren't using the GOP principles, we can use them.
Can we start with American first?
Yeah, American principles, absolutely, and I think that's part of it, because I do believe, you know, and I asked the three of you to comment on this as well, since we're getting deep into the more political stuff, and that's okay. Talking inside baseball is something that we ought to do. I don't do it very often on the radio, during broadcasting. But you've seen the move by the Democrats. As the election gets closer, they're saying, oh, those Republicans, they just go further right, further right, further right. The Tea Parties are just yanking them to the right. And I keep saying, no, the Tea Party's not yanking the Republicans to the right. They're pulling them back down to their original principles. And all you have to do is look at the platform of the NAP, and to a little bit lesser degree the national platform as well. But I much prefer the NHGOP platform, and going back to the principles and then asking, or sometimes screaming at Republicans, why aren't you following these things? Meanwhile, the Democrats, even as they say you're purging all of the moderates, the people who could do bipartisan work, you're purging them from the party, they're going further and further left, and they're actually going aggressive back to that old age where society was ruled by elites. That was the radical idea of our founders that said, no, we should not be ruled by elites. We are sovereign citizens by themselves. So, in the context of being Republican, I'm going to ask you, isn't the case where the Republicans are just going to the right? Is that just a PR stunt by the Democrats? Or do you really think that? But what about the left, the Democrats? There's hardly any moderate Democrats left, too. So, there's the ball up in the air. Go ahead, go for it.
Let me start. You're asking us if we believe what the media says about how the parties are being pulled in these different directions by different factions.
I am.
And I have to stop right there. Do we believe anything the media tells us? I mean, GraniteGrok, we believe, yes. But I'm talking about
Kudos, yay Don.
I think what filters down to us from the media is so twisted that I question everything. So if you're asking, do I believe that the media is correct about the factions and pulling the parties in different directions, how can we give any credence to any of that? Go ahead, Alan.
Sure. Well, I guess my reaction to all of this is that I think that what's happened over time here is, well, think back to, what was it, 1968, the Democratic Convention in Chicago. I'm giving away my age. I'm only 2 years old.
All right.
But at that time, there was a great upheaval. I can remember Mayor Daley shaking his fist at people for what they were saying, and they were arresting all the so-called hippies and all. Well, we're going through a similar revolution right now. It's not necessarily the same ideology specifics, but it's similar in that it's people voicing their opinions about how things are going and how they wish for them to go. And you talk about polarization now, we also had polarization back then, so I have to believe that this is something that's probably cyclical in nature, that periodically things come together and then they spread apart again. I can't help but feel that there's the old physics axiom, I guess, of for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, and with the Tea Party coming to life, that it has caused the Democrats as well to react in such a way that it's almost like a self-serving thing. The Tea Party there are many who will tend to go extreme to the right, and I think there are many more Democrats who now will go more extreme to the left, with just as a reaction. I like to, my own philosophy, I look at Republicans and I say to myself, we hold Ronald Reagan at a very high level here, and one of the things that Reagan talked about was that you don't have to be voting 100% of the time or believe 100% with the platform, but if you're a 70% or 80% person on the Republican side, then you're a good Republican and you're doing your job and all. And so I think we've got a broad spectrum here, and as long as there's a respect for all of that within certain guidelines, then we're in good shape.
Yeah, they know what's going to happen. They see the smile on my face. I'm going to crash that part.
Oh, I knew you were. I knew you were.
Because I do watch the voting records, especially for voting count. And there are three people in mind that I'm toying with the idea. I'll look at Peter Bolster, Dr. Billiard, and White, whose voting records are very much so. We're talking about 100%, not 80%, not 70%, but they're struggling to get 40, 45%. Doesn't that hurt the Republican Party? You can't have the party say one thing and putting you guys on the spot.
No,
and
that's all right.
We understand.
The Republicans say, here's our platform. This is what we believe. This is what we stand for. And then these people basically vote against it. Ray Burton, who, Executive Council of District 1, my guy, unfortunately, he's endorsing a Democrat. We've got other Republicans who are running for position who were part of that Republicans for Lynch, Democratic government. When ordinary people, we understand what's going on, but when ordinary people see that, what do you think they think of the Republican Party at that point? I mean, don't they believe what they say?
We have to do some serious vetting of our candidates before they get to that stage so that this doesn't happen. Now, why hasn't it been happening? As Don pointed out, people were comfortable, they were complacent, and I think that is changing. And I think we will see that people are waking up, starting to pay more attention. But it's our job as leaders to get that message out to people.
And I would like to comment on that because as you know, I'm Belknap County Chair, and I think it's certainly, I would like to see our Republican candidates, our Republicans supporting Republicans. However, I don't subscribe to the concept of a litmus test, but what I do subscribe to is the concept of the voters making the decision about who they wish to see represent them. And the reality here is that these people who you mentioned already were voted in by the constituencies. So then the question is, will the voters continue to vote these people in, and do they best represent the constituencies? It's really up to the voters to decide that. For instance, I'll just point out that when it comes to any primaries, I remain neutral. It's one of the basics of this. And so I really look at this and I say, yes, I'd like to see some Some of our candidates adhere to more of the Republican principles, but on the other hand, I also look at them and I say, if somebody's going to vote 50% of the time as a Republican, and they're running against a Democrat who's going to vote 0% of the time as a Republican, I'd rather have that than a 0%er. If, again, it's the voters who make the final decision.
GrokTV.